Hey there, folks. So, last episode we went through and got the sun rotation working. We have everything set up now where the sun is going to be moving through the sky on our 24-hour basis. One thing you may notice, it's fast because we're having a 1 minute is 5 days, but the actual direction of the sun has changed. I inverted the graph just because I realized I had the sun going from when we're facing this way, the sun was rising in what would have been the east over here, setting in the west, which would have put this in the southern hemisphere. My intent is this is a northern hemisphere setting. Again, though, as I mentioned in previous episodes, I'm hoping for to include some mod integration, which that can be something that people change if they want it southern hemisphere, they can. But between episodes, I did that. I inverted the direction of the sun. I also went through and added some of my to-do logging that I mentioned in the previous episodes. However, this episode, we are actually going to... actually, I'll just hop back into the plane editor quickly so you can see. The sun goes down, but you can see our scene is still very well lit. So what we're going to be working on this episode is actually our skylight. We select that in the scene here. You can see we have a skylight. It has a, where's its intensity? Intensity scale of 1. And it's got a light color. Well, in the last episode, we went through and covered our directional light. Repeating myself here, but we're going to work on our skylight now. So with that, bear with me 1 second here. Just going to pull up my notes. With that said, though, we are going to start working on the skylight. So we're going to use a similar method to what we did with the directional light. It's all going to be contained in the same function. There's not going to be light rotation on the skylight, so we don't need to worry about anything in our update light rotation. And I spelled that wrong, so let's fix that quickly. Rotation. Preview, that should be 3 places, 4 places? 3 places. CPP, the definition, the use, and the header for the declaration. Yep. Okay. Save that quickly. So anyways, so here in our update lighting, well, we're going to need to use similar logic to what we have here for our negative case. So if not valid is valid skylight, is that what I called it? Skylight, or not valid skylight intensity. We're just going to, and as you can see, as I mentioned, I added some logging in here. Actually, just going to copy that whole section. Skylight or skylight intensity invalid. Okay. And again, the reason we're doing this is it's, okay, so we're checking if the sun isn't valid, we're not going to do anything. We want to drop out of that. Do the sun logic. Then if the skylight isn't valid, we're just going to drop out of it. I haven't set these as a critical error because, well, it doesn't stop the game playing. It doesn't break it. It just causes the lighting to not update. Because as you can see here, we have our time updating. But then our lighting isn't being updated. Anyway, so in the skylight logic, after that we want float skylight intensity. Actually, I'm going to call this new skylight intensity equals skylight intensity. Get float value. And we are going to use what we used up here, current time of day. And then after that, skylight, spell, set, this is intensity, no, get light component, set intensity, new skylight intensity. And I believe this has the same thing, skylight, get light component, update. I'm just putting the function in brackets in there. Update color. Oh, I'm just going to update. Nope, it does not have the update. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. Now, one thing I had mentioned, and I do want to include that for the skylight, is the color. During the day, because your ambient bounce lighting, whatever you want to refer to it as, has more of a yellow-red. It's a warmer color because it's coming directly from the sun. At nighttime, that color is more of a white-blue. It's a colder color. So we do want to include another color there. Did I add that in? Sunlight? No, I didn't. So we're going to want to do, if you notice, I missed updating these tooltips. I'll do that between next episode. Well, between this episode and next episode. But we're going to want to, nope, that's a float curve. We are going to grab our sun rotation. Skylight daily color. All right, and then we're going to go back to our actual function. And then we're going to go if not valid. Actually, no, this one, if is valid. So I'm just thinking about these on the fly. If we want to have that option. So if the skylight color, daily color is valid, because we don't want it to, as with the annual sun intensity, we don't want it not being there to be considered an error. So that's why in this case we're using it as a positive, where in our other case we were looking at it as a negative. So then what we want is an F linear color, new sky color equals. And this is something I would recommend with my naming conventions. You're going to see I use fairly descriptive. You're going to have people who tell you use short form. You're going to have people to tell you use descriptive. Ultimately, go for what you want to. But personally, I would recommend going for these descriptive names because new skylight color tells you exactly what it is. But if it's something like new NLC, NSLC, well, it's an acronym. Well, it could mean pretty much anything. But ultimately, you could have this as long as you want. It's not going to cause performance issues. Well, it might, but realistically a variable name shouldn't be causing performance issues unless you're having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that are like several hundred characters long. But something like this, not an issue. And then we want get unadjusted linear color value current time of day. Okay, so now we've grabbed that. We just go skylight, get light component, set light color, new skylight color. So this has gone through, and just to cover what we've done, get rid of this to do. So what we've done after we've updated our directional light, which is our primary light source, but because it casts shadows and things like that, inside buildings are going to be pitch black if we don't have a skylight. Currently, we do have a skylight in the scene. It's got a fixed value of, fixed intensity of 1, which is why at night you could still see perfectly. It just looked like we were missing the sun. It looked kind of weird, honestly. But anyways, so we're checking to see, do we have a skylight and do we have an intensity graph for it? because if we don't have a skylight, obviously it doesn't matter, we're not doing anything. If we don't have an intensity graph for it, we're not changing anything there. If we do, we're going to update its intensity. And then if we have a daily color, we are going to want to, I'm trying to think, brain's not working, set the color. Sorry, words were failing me there. So we're going to grab our color from the current time of day, well, based on our current time of day, and we're going to apply that to the skylight. Just making sure. Is there anything else? Nope, that should be everything there. Now we don't have our intensity, sorry, our skylight intensity or our skylight color. What I'm going to do though, we will build this, and then we will hop into the editor and we'll start making those two curves, flow curve and a color curve. And just while this builds, I'll talk about it quickly before I pause the video, but I realized last episode I didn't actually show setting them up, how to create them or anything like that, so I will do that this episode. And with that though, I will pause and I will be back as soon as the engine is back up and running. Alright folks, we are back in the editor. So first thing, as I mentioned, I'm going to go through showing how these were created, or how to create these. So we're going to go through into our content, project file, data, and curve folder as I created in the last episode. And I'm going to right click, you go down to the miscellaneous section, and you just have a curve option. You select that, and then from there you can select if you want a float curve, linear curve, or a vector curve. So we're going to start with a float curve, and this is going to be skylight daily intensity. I'm going to just save that for ease. We're going to open that up. Opened up off screen. So with the graph, we need to remember we're working in the number of minutes per day, and that's the 1440. So we're going to want to add a key at 0, and we're going to just throw another key down, and we're going to set that at 1440. And then I found an easy trick to get your window to resize. You just unpin your float, select a curve on the left to begin editing, and you can see we have our 0 and our 1440. So we don't want it to be 0 over the entire course of the day. We actually want it to have a start value. So we're going to want it to be around 0.1 to start. So I'm actually going to select both of these keys, and we're going to set them at 0.1. So it's going to move them up. And about 5 o'clock in the morning is when we're going to want things to start changing. So we're going to put one at 300. That's 5 o'clock. And then 1440, half of that's 720. I'm going to throw one at 600 just for ease and change that to 720. That's noon. And then we want 7, that's 12, so half 20, 720, 310. I'm just trying to think where we want some of these other values to be. Want one around 1,000. Now, just to say, with these float curves and the color curves and things like that, obviously tweak them for how you want them to be for your project. You want your sun to rotate west to east because you're on an alien planet. That works. You just need to play with these values. I'm not dialing these into the perfect ratios yet, just simply because I'm still in the real early phases of development. And then it's about, I'm just trying to think, about 13, so 1440, 1380, 1320, it'd be about 10 o'clock. So 1320. So we want to keep our two endpoints, 1440 and 0, at 0.1, because they jump from one to the other is how that's going to work. We don't want these to have any differences, because then you're going to notice a sudden instant snap in your intensity, which you don't want. The whole purpose of the curve is for some gradual changes. So about 5 o'clock in the morning, we do want this to go up. I've actually found for the skylight, you don't want to go above like 0.3, 0.4. So we're going to take our 720, that's our 12 noon, and I'm going to put that to 0.35. And then we're going to want our 720. Was that 720? No, 1000. We want that to be really, really low, because you want that transition effect from day to night where your eyes are starting to adjust. I'm going to set this to 0. Helps if I actually click on it. 0.01. And we're going to do the same for this last one, 0.01. And this gives us quite a jagged looking graph, and that's fine. We're just going to leave that. But what you can do, I'll undo this actually after I do it, but you select all but those last two end nodes, and you either use your cubic interpolation automatic or that one, but I like to keep it flat, at least for this initial phase where we're just seeing, are these the right values roughly. So I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to move the content browser out of the way just for ease. We're going to select our Chronomanager. Now in here, we can close out time. Down in our skylight section, you pick your skylight. And just like our directional light, let me just find that in here, skylight, you want it to have its mobility set to movable. Now we're not doing any rotation with it, but I found it works a lot better when this is movable, because that's forcing the engine to register this is an actor that needs to be updated every tick. But anyway, so we're going to go back to the Chronomanager now. Chronomanager. And our skylight intensity, we just select that from our content browser and drop that in there. We're going to do a quick play in editor. And I'm going to go skylight so we can find it. And you can see our intensity goes, we get a bit of view. Now we don't have any color effect here. And I think that drop down to 0.1 is actually too long. And this is why I wasn't worried about, yeah, that is way too long. It doesn't light up. So we'll bring back our skylight intensity here. So this gap is way too long. And it's too early. No, let's just go. I want that to kick in at about 10 o'clock. So we're going to go 10 times 60. 600? No, I'm doing that. That's 22 by 600. Oh, by 60 even, sorry. 1320. So I've actually got that as the end time. So I want this to be 1380. And I want this value to be, actually I'm going to add another key in here. 1320. And we want that to be, what do we set, 0.1? Yeah. No, 0.01. And then this one, we want it to be somewhere around here. You want it to sort of slow peak, slow, and then suddenly get really dark really quick. So I'm going to save that, move this out of the way again, and we'll give this another shot. So when this loads, okay. I'm actually going to select our Chronomancer here. Mancer, I say it every time. It's not magic. And I want our time open so we can actually see. So it gets dark, starts lightening up. That needs to be even shorter. So I want that to be the equivalent of about 15 minutes. So, but now you can see though, with that, it gets dark. Yeah, we need that whole transition to happen a lot quicker. So pull this back over. We want this to be, okay, you're at 1320. We want this to be at like 1315. So that's 5 minutes to drop down. And then 1320, we want that 10 minutes. So we want that to be 1330. We'll give that a shot. Let's move that over. Select our Chronomanager for visual. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Drops really quick. Okay, so it's effective to what I want, but it's very drastic. So that is where you go through and you select all but your first and last point, and you hit that auto interpolate. Actually, that did not do what I want, is because we get this drop here, which we don't want. So we're going to select those. We're going to flatten those. And this one has got a really harsh arc. So let's select that. We want this to be a smoother transition. Actually, I was wrong. It keeps the flat edge on the right and the left, so you can auto interpolate all of them. Again, this one here though, you want to keep as a flat because we don't want it to drop down. We want it to stay level, because you never want it going below the darkest point. So let's give this a shot, see how it goes. Okay, and actually we need to move everything to the left. Okay, let's just see. Let this run through. At what point does the sun get down enough that we want to have that transition? 15, 16, 17, 18, so that's 6. Yeah, all right, so stop with that. Pull up the calendar again, so 18 times 60, 1080. Okay, I actually had these in the right spot to begin with. So we want this one to be 1075. This one to be 1080. And this one to be 1090. Let's give that a shot now. And this is where I'm actually going to stop after this attempt, because you guys don't really need to see me sitting here tweaking my values for now until the end of time. But there you go. This gives you a very rough idea, and then it starts warming up, or lightening up. Now we need to deal with the color. So I have already dealt with the color side of things. However, I will show you, with that from my previous project, and I'm going to import that, but I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So in your curves folder, right click, same thing, miscellaneous curves, select your curve linear color, and then skylight daily color. Now what you're going to want to do is right click, import from JSON, and just bear with me, I want to make sure I'm not giving away any personal information when I do this, so 1 second. Yep, it was all good, it just opened up. So in here you can see I have skylight color, skylight intensity. I had exported both of those, but I wanted to recreate the intensity. But you select, in this case, skylight color, you open that up, click save just so you don't lose it, and then you can open that up and take a look. And you can see in here, this is some really jaggedy colors. That's sort of on purpose, but you can see it's a cool blue in the morning, sort of the red for dawn, yellow, white, goes back to an ready orange, and then back to your cool blue. So let's close out of that. I'm going to make sure I keep that highlighted. In our Chronomanager, we're not a time mage. We're going to set our skylight daily color. Now what I'm going to do for this though, skylight, we're going to select that, make sure it's there. As you can see, light color currently is white. I'm going to hit play. You can see the skylight is changing, and it actually makes quite a difference. That blue needs to be more white, I think. But you can see it does have an effect on the world. So we've got that basics done now. You can see our intensity adjusts. Quite a hop there at 1 to not 0.1. But again, like I say, I'm going to tweak that later in the series. This is just to give you some basic idea, and it gives some effect. I think that 0.1 might even be a 0.01 might be a little too dark. But there you guys go. You can see we have a day-night cycle happening. So I'm going to stop that. I'm just going to save everything. In this case, it's just updating and saving our Chronomanager with our 2 curves we added. And I'm actually going to close out of the editor for now. And because we're going to be going through and adding in our save game logic. You can see in here, there's a lot of stuff that are save game. We don't actually need these to be save game because they're things that are set in the editor and they're not going to be changing at runtime. So I can get rid of the save game on all of these because they aren't needed. And realistically, if I am remembering things correctly, which is a very far-fetched option. Well, these 3 you do want to keep as a save game because they are things that are going to be needed. Day length in minutes, you could make it something that gets applied once the save game is loaded. However, I like to keep that in there. Use day-night cycle, though it's set in the editor. That is something I want to make configurable, so we're going to leave that as a save game as well. And current time, this is the big one. So what we're actually going to do there, we're going to look at our time data struct, and you can see these are also save game, visible anywhere, blueprint read only, save game. So with our save game, we are going to open up our TF actor because that's where it's derived from. And this update from save is our big one that we need. So we're going to copy that, go into our Chronomanager header. I'm going to put that in our public section. And we are going to create the definition. So what do we need to do here? Well, we need to trigger a tick, basically, or trigger some of our logic. And really that's just updating the lighting. So that should be all we need to do, honestly. However, it's going to be depending on how our save game works. So with that, I just want to make sure live editor is, well, make sure there's nothing else. Begin play, calculate day length. Actually, we're going to want to throw that calculate day length in right at the start. So calculate day length, update time of day, update light rotation, update lighting. So calculate time of day, we're just going to step through these quick to make sure we've got them in the right place. That just tells us that's for our tick. So we want that set up. Update time of day ref is just used for our current time of day, which is what we're using to get our daily information for our color, intensity, things like that. Update light rotation, we're setting it to what it should be, and update lighting is, again, we're setting it to what it should be. So I'm going to launch this. It may take a moment for this to build, so I don't really have anything to talk about. So I will pause things and I will be back as soon as we are back in the editor. All right, folks, we're back in the editor. So now we're going to test our save game. So I'm going to just go to our Chronomanager, and I want this to, well, I'm doing this just because I want the time to not be insanely fast. So I want 1 day to last 1 minute. And the reason for that is so we can physically see, okay, what's our month, day, hour, minute. So we're going to hit play and quickly select our Chronomanager just so it's off to the side there. I'm going to go up and just pick up the mushroom so it's in our inventory. I'm going to hit 7 to save, and we were around 1620. We're going to hit 9 to load, and you can see everything is jumping back to roughly where it was. So with that, we now have our time being saved and correctly reloaded when we load and save our game. I'm going to hop out of that quickly. I'm going to hit play, and we're just going to hit 9 to load. So we should jump over to by the ramp, the mushroom should be gone, and it should be about 1620. Let me just get that selected up again. I'm going to stop because too much time had passed. So we're going to hit 9 as soon as this responds, and you can see everything's good there. And with that, I'll just explain the stopping the play and editor, jumping in, and then just loading. That simulates like logging out of the game, shutting it down, coming back in, and loading up a fresh save game. So we still have a little bit of time left in this episode. I'm not a fan of the 30-minute episodes as much as that's what YouTube's been telling me. I'm going to push this a little further. So we're actually going to start work on our broadcast delegate. I don't think we're going to get that finished this episode, but we'll get things started there. So I'm going to close out of the editor. I want to save that. And we'll get things started there. So delegates are a little weird in C++ compared to how they are in blueprints. What we're going to want to start with here is go to our header file, and then right at the top before your class, so between your includes and your class information, you need to declare your delegate. So we're going to declare, we want it to be a dynamic multicast. So I'm going to have to type that out. Dynamic multi. Have I spelled that wrong? Yes, I spelled dynamic wrong. Dynamic multi-class delegate. Sorry, multicast, not class. Multi-class delegate with 1 parameter. Now, what that is basically it's passing out it's hard to describe in layman's terms, but it's basically making a function broadcast that says I'm passing out this, well, this broadcast is being made, and I'm including 1 input parameter with that. And then what we're going to do here is you need to name your delegate. So this is going to be Time Change Delegate. And again, I would highly recommend using clear naming convention. You need to include the type. So this is going to be an time data. And then you need to provide its name. As you can see here, delegate name, parameter. I'm pointing at the screen like you guys can see this, but delegate name, parameter, and then parameter name. And the parameter name is just going to be time data. And you close that off. Now this is going to throw an IntelliSense error. Don't worry about that, because there's nothing for that having been built yet. So save that, and then what do we call that? Change. I'm trying to remember how we set these up. It's been a little while since I've used these. I'm trying to think now. Oh, yes, you have to define the function for it. So what you also need to do is, after you've added this declaration at the top, again, like I said, ignore this IntelliSense. It's just how it is initially. In your public section, what you want to do is go U function. Sorry, U property. Sorry, property. U property? Yeah, U property. Blueprint assignable. And then you want to use your delegate name. So in this case, it's F time change. Sorry. Yeah, your delegate name. F time change delegate. Make sure to copy the whole thing. And then give it a name. So on time changed. Now, what you're going to be doing, like, this is in the header file. This is all you need. So this is, just explain, you're declaring I am using a delegate. The delegate is the F time change delegate. It has an input parameter of F time data, and we're naming it time data. Down here, you're saying I have this delegate. I want it to be able to be accessible to blueprints. And that's what the blueprint assignable is. Now, you don't need to create a function for it. What you're going to do is go into your source file, and in this case, in our tick, right at the very end, if, what did we call that parameter? Update, well, I'm doing it's in here. Time was updated. If time was updated on time changed, broadcast, and then you need to pass through your data. Well, in this case, it's current time. And that's it. So now what we're doing is we have set up a delegate to broadcast every time we have updated our time. So that's minute, hour, day, month, year. This will fire off. We're doing it here after the at the very end, because we want to make sure everything else is done, and then we want to say our time was updated. It's not going to be hit if we're not using a day-night cycle, because obviously we're not concerned about time of day in that case. So, but this fires off basically a message to the engine or the game when it's running, saying, okay, our time's updated. Anyone who cares, this is the information. And anyone who cares, that part is reflected by multicast. That is saying there is going to be a bunch of, well, potentially a bunch of different actors who care about this information. If it's single cast, then there's only one actor who cares about the information. The dynamic is needed for blueprint access. So now with that, yeah, I'll push this a little further. I'm trying to think, how do we do that? Well, right now we really only have one thing that's worried about that, and that is our harvest actor, or rego, growing harvest actor. I'm just trying to think how we can show this is working in game. Actually, we can do that just with a print screen message. Let me build this. We'll launch back in. So this is going to build. It's going to take a little bit longer because there is a delegate involved now. I will be back as soon as we're back in the engine. All right, so we're back in the engine here. So this is just purely for testing that. I'm going to open up my level blueprint. And that opens up off screen, obviously, because everything does. Once that loads up and I can actually move it across. Okay, so we're going to bring that over. Event dispatcher is, I believe, nope, that is not the one we want. That's creating a new one on time chain. I'm trying to remember how to. Oh, it's been a while since I've done this. UE5. Subscribe to C++ delegate. Helps put 5, not percent. Oh, I did that again. How to bind multicast delegate in C++. Blueprint, sorry. Blueprint. Subscribe to C++ delegate. and as bind event. Okay, let's see, bind event to time, no, on time. Why am I not having access to that? Did I miss something here? Create events. In case you haven't solved this one, ensure has U properties set to blueprint assignable. Yep. Should have declared as dynamic multi-class. Yep. To access this in blueprint, get the component reference in the event graph. Oh, component reference. That's why. Get actor of class chrono. No, not get all. Get actor of class. The first one. Chrono on time. Bind event to on time change. Okay, so we want to do this on begin play. And actually, just as you want to do with all things like this, valid. You want to make sure you're only doing this if it is valid, because otherwise you're going to have exceptions and bugs. Custom event. Actually, no, drag it off this. Custom. Break time data. And we're just going to do this very quickly. Last time. When we went with minutes or hours? Last hour. And that's going to be, because we have it in here as an int, we want to set this to an int. I didn't need to type it out. It's a default selection. So what we're going to do here is get and set, and we're going to go if equals. I'm going to drag off a branch. So this will fire off immediately because this is set as a default. And if they are not equal, we want to set our last hour. I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to go print string format, or is it? No, append. Right click zoom. I hate that. New hour is, and we're just going to drag this over. Actually, I'm going to do it off this. Compile. This should work. Move this out of the way, and we're just going to hit play and watch the top left of the screen. New hour is 12. New hour is 13. So that is how you would subscribe to it at a blueprint level, and I just wanted to show that is working. So our Chronomanager is broadcasting that the time has changed. I'm going to let this cycle through all the way to 20, well, technically 24, but 0. But yeah, so our Chronomanager is broadcasting a message saying your time has changed. Here's the new information. 23, and then it should be 0. It's now 0, representing midnight. So there is ways to do this in C++, and we're going to actually be covering that in the next episode. My lack of memory made this run a little longer than I thought, and we've only got about 15 minutes left on the max length I'm willing to do of an hour, and I don't think that's going to be enough. However, what I'm going to do, just because I don't want this right now, I'm going to delete all of this. We're just going to compile and save because we don't want to keep that in our blueprint, level blueprint. So close out of that. And with that though, folks, I am going to say, I'm going to end the episode here. Thank you for watching. As always, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I do respond to them as quickly as I can. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.